Hey everyone, this is Mr. Crafty, and today I'm doing a video about Saiyans and Viltrumites, but more importantly, if both races were put in a fight, who would come out on top. Now, I won't be using, obviously, Goku, Vegeta, or any of the, current characters in the series. It also goes with the Viltrumites. I won't be using Invincible, or Omni-Man after he was trained, stuff like that, because that would just be unfair. I want to take the raw version of their armies and just put them in a deadlock fight and who would come on top. Now, the way the fight will be arranged is that I'll be looking at three classes of each race: the low tiers, mid tiers, and high tiers. And I'll evaluate their powers, abilities, and traits and see if they're all put in a fight, who would come on top. Now, I guess in USA this is more of a three-way battle, but you can also say this with an entire race if you want. Now, I'm going to do the Saiyans first, because why not? And let's start off with the weakest Saiyan. Now, obviously, the weakest Saiyan we see in the series is Goku, but I don't think he should count because he was not enrolled in the army or anything. So, yeah, let's get started. So, who is the weakest Saiyan? Well, I'm going to have to say Raditz. A power level 1000, you know all that. Goku's evil brother. That's enough talking about him. So, we have to find out how strong and fast he is. Well, strong's pretty easy. He was able to defeat two people that could destroy the moon, Goku and Piccolo, quite casually. So if we just say that he's able to one-shot Goku, which he can, and Goku can also destroy the moon, then we have to assume he's at least 7.5 times stronger than him, or Raditz would be able to output 9.3 times 10 to the 29 joules of energy, which is which is moon level, but on the verge of small planetary. Pretty good for Raditz, and speed's actually very easy to cover because he was able to dodge the special beam cannon. I'm not going to try to pronounce it in English, as I know the Japanese version is like the Mafabu something. See, I don't know why Piccolo is such hard to say names. But anyway, when he was to dodge that, it was also said that he would have to be faster than light to dodge it. Everyone knows that. It's like it's a meme moment now. And yeah, that's really it for the weakest Saiyans. So the weakest Saiyans are looking at moon level and faster than the speed of light. Now let's move over to the mid tiers of their race. Okay, moving on to the mid tiers of the Saiyans. Now, I would put that category, Nappa would be in that category because, well, I don't know, just kind of narrative makes sense. If we see Raditz, then we see Nappa, and then Vegeta, that stuff like that. I'm just going to put him at a mid tier. Now, how strong is Nappa? Well, we know he had a power level of 4,000, but since no one really knows how power levels work, I'm not gonna try to figure that out. I'm just gonna assume since he had a power level 4,000 and Raditz had a power level 1,000, that he's at least 4 times stronger than him. And if we do that, well, here's what it comes out to be. So since he's 4 times stronger than him, then Nappa should be able, or mid-tier Saiyans should be able to output 3.72 times 10 to the 30 joules of energy, or small planetary, which is pretty good. And if they're 4 times faster than the low tiers, that means they would be 4 times faster than the speed of light. And that's kind of it. And I would say I put most of the mid-tier Saiyans from the Saiyans we see in the Bardock special just in the bar. I would assume that they're mostly mid-tier, or the rest of Bardock's crew, most of them. Now let's move on to the high tiers of the Saiyans. Okay, moving on to Saiyans and the final tier that I'm scaling the Saiyans. I would say Vegeta is a good candidate to be the high tier Saiyans. Now, the reason why I say that is, one, Paragus, we know his power level is over 50,000 or something like that, but he was training with Broly for those years, so we can't really put a good depiction of how much his power level was, how strong it was before he went off to that planet, which I forgot the name of, sorry. And Bardock, well, he's built different. And plus, he kind of got some awakening from a future that I don't think would be put fair to put him as like he was a natural high tier. He was a high tier beforehand, but like after that, he did get some sort of boost in power. So I just want to be safe and put Vegeta. So how strong or fast was Vegeta? Well, we know for one, he's planetary because he was stated to be planetary, not by himself. He was also shown in that little filler episode, which, hey, if you want to say it's canon or not, be my guest. But it was also stated in data books, so he's quite easily put at planetary, quite casually. And if we assume that he's 4.5 times faster than Nappa, which is the difference from 4 to 18, then that means he's, well, 18 times faster than the speed of light. Kind of obvious. But now, that's kind of it for the high tiers. Now, let's go into some of the abilities all Saiyans have. Now, they have ki manipulation. We see even from a very early age, even something as Goku, as some type of ki manipulation. And, well, it's pretty easy to do. They can shoot energy waves. Some even have hacks, but they can at least all shoot some type of powerful energy wave. Now, some weaknesses. This weakness is only found in the low tier of Saiyans, where if they're grabbed by the tail, well, then they fucked. But the mid to high tiers worked out a way around it, so that's not really going to be much of a problem. They also all have incredible long-lasting lives. It was stated by Vegeta that they don't, they physically start aging when they turn 80 in, human years. So they're all pretty much at their prime for a long-ass time. And they all can survive in extreme cold and hot places, as shown surviving in the depths of the galaxy, but they cannot breathe there. They need to, they have really powerful lungs. They have to suck air from the atmospheres. And yeah, that's kind of it with the Saiyans. But they all share one special ability. That's the Arzaru transformation. I am not counting Super Saiyan transformations. That's only attained by, the god tiers of the show. By god tiers, I mean anyone that's not a Saiyan that died by Frieza, basically, all those years ago. So now Super Saiyan's attainable by basically anyone. But regardless, the Arzaru transformation is a great ape. When a Saiyan becomes a great ape, their power is unfold by 10 times. So to put that in perspective, if a low tier was to go, and it can only be activated in full moon, or if you have Blitz Wave, which we've only seen the high tiers able to make. So I'm only giving that ability to the high tiers. But as shown also in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 1 and 2, the Blitz Waves can affect even the other Saiyans that didn't cast it. So I'm just going to say it can affect any other Saiyans. Now, talking about the Blitz Wave, basically those are transformation would unfold your power or speed by 10 times. And that would mean someone like Raditz, or the low tiers, would be small planetary and at least 10 times faster than light. The mid tiers would be at least at least small planetary, almost planetary, and much more faster than light, at least 14 times faster than light. And the high tiers would be still planetary, basically large planetary, but still planetary, right? And be much faster than the speed of light. And yeah, I think that's kind of wraps up the Saiyans. Let's move over to the Viltrumites. Alright, now moving on to the Viltrumite side of the spectrum, we gotta start with the weakest of the Viltrumites. Now, I could just go into the meta and say the Viltrumites that we see fight Alan are weakest, but I don't really want to go that route. I want to go throughout saying when we first see Mark get his powers is the weakest Viltrumite, since all Viltrumites were meant for fighting. So I'm just using that to say he was the weakest Viltrumite. So how strong and fast was Mark? Well, we do know that he was able to survive hits from Omni-Man, which was able to shatter mountains, and he took him fine until he got fucked by him. But also, he was able to stop a meteor that, stayed by Omni-Man, would have destroyed at least a country, and he was able to throw it back into the atmosphere with at least equal velocity or speed. So, he's at least country level, I would say. And that's just when we first see him. I'm really handicapping the Viltrumites right here. And in terms of speed, he was, which is really easy to understand, he was stated in a data book to be able to fly at average speeds of over 800 kilometers per hour, which is like massively hypersonic. And that's kind of it for the low ends. Let's move on to the mid ends of the Viltrumite race. So I didn't really want to overscale these guys, so I decided to just go with the only way I could think of, because we do see at least mid-tier Viltrumites are able to fight in one shot Alan the Alien, which was able to be comparable, if not equal to Mark Grayson. So I just assumed they're at least 7.5 times stronger than them, which means they should be able to output 2.1966 times 10 to the 23 joules of energy, or large country level. And in terms of speed, well, the Viltrumites were meant to travel interstellar distances in like weeks or days. And like, here's just a casual feat from Omni-Man I usually use just as a low tier, that it puts them at over 60,000 times faster than the speed of light. So, I just use that as like a low ball saying, so they are massively faster than light. So I'm just going to give that to them. Now, I know I could have went to detail saying, oh, then most likely those Viltrumites were stronger than the Mark that was able to take a nuclear bomb that was stated that could have made the sun have the biggest solar flare known to mankind, which would yield over multi-continental joules energy. But, I just wanted to be safe and give the Saiyans some lenience. Anyway, let's move over to the high tiers of the Viltrumites now. Now moving on to the high tiers of the Viltrumites. So I'm just going to assume that Thrag is the highest tier, since he is the strongest Viltrumite there is there. And he didn't really get stronger throughout the series. He was just that strong throughout. If you want to argue he got stronger after his fight with Battle Beast, that's kind of irrelevant. So I'm not even using post Battle Beast Thrag anyway. So let's just talk about how strong the high tiers are. So if you want to go like in a low tier, Omni-Man, Invincible, and that one other Viltrumite were able to destroy planet Viltrum, which still made them planetary, and he was able to manhandle and basically one-shot them quite casually then and even after they got stronger. So if you just want to assume he's at least 7.5 times planetary, he's almost large planetary in terms of strength, so the high tiers are roughly almost large planetary. But you also have to factor in that even lower characters were fighting, well, planetary or planet wiper foes, and then that just like kind of cements the fact the high tier should be at least planetary. Also, there's the interesting feat where a lower and weaker version of Mark was able to defeat a base spawn, which a lot of feats vary from, but one of his weaker feats in base was able to fight against someone that fought against someone that was multi-solar system. So I kind of just use that as interesting. At least the high tiers are multi-solar system, since he was able to manhandle a version of Mark that was much than the last fought, not to mention even other high tiers like Conquest was. Now let's move on to the conclusion. Each races would fight who would win. So I'm not even gonna lowball it. The low end, the Saiyans will win because they're just much faster and stronger. It doesn't even matter. Now for the mid tiers, now that's a different story. Though the Saiyans are much stronger, like a massive gap, means small planetary, all the way down to like versus a large country level foe. The speed is also a tremendous gap. Like I'm pretty sure, like if I just say they're at least 60,000 times speed of light, right, which most calcs put at that or higher, and well, Saiyans are only 4 times faster speed of light. That's almost a 1,500 times gap in power, speed, sorry. So it really depends on, do you think a country level foe could defeat a planetary level foe if they just like they'll be speed blitzing for sure. There's no way that they're not going to be. So, yeah, it's really all depends on what you think. And, yeah, so I will probably lean, and the stamina isn't even a contest. They're just Viltrumite can take more damage, physical trauma, than we've seen any Saiyan able to do, and they can go on 2 weeks with no food, water, and be completely fine and fight. And so it really all depends on what you think. But I'll probably lean more on maybe the Saiyan side, just because even if just one tiny flick would just implode them. But moving on to the high tiers, I shouldn't even discuss this, but if we just assume they're both planetary, and they're at least 7.5 times planetary, then they win. Unless if they go into the Great Ape or Ozaru transformation, then they would be stronger, but just much faster. So that doesn't even matter, and they should logically be multi-solar system levels of strength. So it doesn't matter. It's literally comparing Saiyan Arc Vegeta to Cell. Who's going to come out on top? There's no chance. Not whatsoever. Perfect Cell was able to trash a grade 2 Super Saiyan Vegeta. Just what do you think a Cell would do to an army of cells would do to a Saiyan level, Saga Vegeta? Now, now, here's what the fight will go down. The low tiers Saiyans would come out on top. The mid tier, they'll probably be duking it out maybe for a few minutes until the victor would come out. But after literally the high tier, blitzes behind the high tier of the Viltrumite, blitzes behind the high tier Saiyan, snaps his neck. He'll literally just have to look at the other Saiyans and they would all die, and then the Viltrumites would win. And if you want to say, oh, what if the entire race would come into the factor, then it would be a lot. I'd say the Saiyans have the advantage in numbers, obviously, if you don't want to count the fact that they're all dead. But they have the advantage, and if they would all go their Zaru form, then that's another big factor they have in it. But it's not really comparing to the might of a potential army, at least a small army of cells practically going at them when they couldn't stop one Frieza, which granted Frieza did saw them as a threat, but they saw them as a combined threat, and most calcs, and I don't know, it wasn't really clear if he saw that as a threat as in the future or currently, and if it didn't, it saw him as a threat in his final or first form, because and I know some people might say, hey, how come he didn't use Bardock? He was most likely the strongest Saiyan at the time. See, it wouldn't even matter if I did use Bardock as a base, because he was trashed by a first form Frieza, which most calcs put him at Dwarf Star level, versus a high tier Viltrumite that could literally equate to a Cell. Come on. So that's where I'm standing, and of course they have, and I'm not saying every high tier is on Thrag's level. Of course Thrag's a beast of his own, but I gave him a lot of leniency to the Saiyans, because I didn't even factor in conquest, and nor did I factor the fact that most of the mid tier Viltrumites could defeat planetary level foe, could potentially defeat planetary or planet wiper foes, and I didn't low scale the Saiyans to the fact saying when Goku first started out, I did for Mark. I have my own reasonings for that, since all the Viltrumites were meant to be fighters in contrast to the Saiyans. Some were just delivery people, but you get the point. So that's why in an all-out, if you're going an all-out war race fight, if just Thrag's in the thing, it doesn't matter. They're all dead. But I believe there are weaker high tier Viltrumites, but they're still on that planetary to star level range. But still, some might be solar system level. And also the fact that there's even a universal meta to the point where just the dinosaur guy was able to just chop off Omnipotence's head and kill him instantly. And this is a much weaker version of Mark that kind of trashed him before, and he was able to fight Conquest equally, and Omnipotence does have a databook statement to be he destroyed his own universe. And even if you depict that as it took him a long time, that's multi-galaxy levels of energy, at least, if you want to use the speed they all have. and low ball if you really want to be planetary. But that's all. I'm giving this to the to the Viltrumites. But even if you add someone as weak as like Kid Trunks or Goten, then the whole fight's flipped. Anyway, that's all. Mr. Crafty out.